And welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. She is a spiritual coach, master healer, and of course, an author too. No other than Miss Cheryl Stelte.
Hello, Daniel. Thank you so much for having me here.
Welcome, Miss Cheryl. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I missed?
Yes, I'm a spiritual coach. I'm a master healer and an author and a bit of a speaker. And I help. It used to be I help primarily mature women, but I'm getting a lot more men. So I help mature people move
Yes.
beyond their subconscious blocks, people who are feeling stuck in some area of their life, like really stuck, and everything that used to work for them before is not working. They lack the clarity on how to move forward. And so I help them clear those blocks that they can't gain access to, clear those blocks so they can gain the clarity and move forward and become the person they can't currently imagine.
Move forward for sure. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Miss Cheryl. Hoping for more and more empowering books like this to come. So today let's talk about your latest book, From Black to Powerful. Tell us, how do you define a subconscious block and why is it so much more powerful than a simple bad habit or lack of willpower?
It's such a great question. And so first, let's just say, I'll tell you what a subconscious block is, and then I'll tell you how to find one, how to locate a subconscious block. When we're feeling blocked, we don't know what the problem is, and all of us, even the best of us with best parents, have some forms of trauma from our childhood. I don't believe that anybody just gets to go through life a breeze and everything's wonderful and unconditional love, because our souls chose this life and chose certain challenges. And so we can call them, there might be traumas or maybe wounds, and they get locked into our subconscious because the memory doesn't form really well until age 4. Uh, and so there may be some memory at age 3, but 2 and earlier is really not happening. And often it's even in the womb that little fetuses are traumatized
Hmm.
because they feel the mother's anxiety, her pain, her worry, or her trauma that she's experiencing. Life isn't always just, like I said, unconditional love and peachy. And so, what happens, science today has proven that trauma is stored in the right side of the brain, which is the subconscious, through physical sensations and emotions, not through linear memories. So,
Hmm.
and so you don't have to remember. A lot of people are scared to remember certain things from the past, or they don't want to. And if you do remember it, what you remember is always going to be fragmented. It'll always be in pieces. So it's not even ideal to focus on that, because your left thinking brain will naturally want to fill in the blanks, and then there you have a story, and the story doesn't serve you, because science has also proven that it's not so much about what happened, it's the lingering feeling of uncertainty in one's life afterwards, the self doubt, the uncertainty. And so I help people access those subconscious blocks and clear them. And I do it by helping them, first off, with what I call the full breath, what's quite well known, I think, in the world today, in circles I'm in anyway. And breathing with the lower abdomen. I'm not talking about breathing from the diaphragm like in yoga. It's lower than that, even below the navel. And as soon as you engage your abdominal muscles in a long, slow breath, your brain function changes and you're able to access your subconscious.
Miss Cheryl, where do these blocks primarily originate? And they mostly forge in a childhood experiences, cultural conditioning, or past traumas and failures?
Yes. It's it's all about our, past traumas, but they serve us. They serve us. So it's about clearing them. We understand them and they get in the way, and it plays out in our lives in so many different ways. In relationships, we can say, wow, I keep attracting the same kind of men all the time. I keep attracting alcoholics. We'll use that as an example. And at first I don't see them as an alcoholic, and then 6 months into the relationship I see that, whoa, they're dependent on alcohol, or they drink significantly more than I realize. Why is this happening? There's a pattern because there's a hook in there, a trauma hook. And so when you access and then clear the block, you start to notice that you're attracted to different people. The people around you change. Or it might be, oh, all the jobs I get, I can only go so far. I'm never one of those people that get promoted. And a subconscious block there might be, you feel unworthy. At a subconscious level, this isn't at the level of the mind. And I like to say, to me, there's four main subconscious blocks that show up as beliefs that are hidden underneath a whole uh, variant range of emotions. There's all these emotions that hold that in there. And those four subconscious beliefs are: not in this order. I'm unworthy. I'm not enough. I don't matter. And I'm unlovable. And so if you're at every job you get, you never get the promotion. It's always other people, and you think you're working hard. You've got a block around that. If you really want to advance, there's nothing wrong with staying at a certain level, but there's something going on there. So when people hit these roadblocks in their lives and they see these patterns, those are the kind of people that come to me. It's like, I've done everything. I've done the therapy. I've done some energy healing. I've meditated. I have tried all sorts of things, and I'm just not getting there. I just don't know how to move to this next level. I want to be in middle management, for example, and it's been 20 years, and this is important to me. And so then we can always find the blocks, and then poof, they're going to get a promotion. It's happened.
Yes. Definitely remove the block, people, to be successful. How does self sabotage look like in its early, subtle stages? And how can someone learn to recognize it as a signal of a deeper block, not a character flaw?
Self-sabotage is actually serving you when you see it. So let's just say, for example, the person that wants to get a middle management job and they're just not, and it's been 20 years. It always comes from us. We can't blame anybody else, especially if it's been happening at all the jobs. And it's it's something to look for as almost a sacred opportunity to grow through. So instead of saying, oh, I keep getting the wrong boss, or blaming, to look at the self. What do I need to understand about this? What do I need to know? And that's when you can go into your subconscious using the full breath, and you can follow your feelings into it and learn when the pattern first developed, where it came from, when did it start. And you can release it at that level, and then reprogram your subconscious in so that your subconscious is more in alignment with the truth of your being. So, and it might be that you actually weren't meant to get a middle management job. That's just going to be a stepping stone. That you're actually I think of one client of mine who worked for Google, and she really wanted to advanced, and she was never getting the promotions. And then we cleared the blocks and she got the promotion. And then I just saw, oh, she's gone off. She quit Google and started her own high level business, for a very high level coach for, you know, uh, executives and leaders and that sort of thing. So I cheer her on because she learned how to clear the blocks.
Yes. Clear the block, people. Clear the block. And a block doesn't always look like a fear. How can it clearly disguise itself as a perfectionism or a rationalization or even a being too busy?
Ah, so, even our blocks can disguise themselves as success. Even so, if that might not be making sense to you right now. How does it disguise itself as success? So what I've discovered over the years is that often what happens, people move into performance. They decide that they have to be the best at something, but it's not coming from the person they want to become. They want the recognition, maybe they want the recognition or the status or that sort of thing, and they need that so much, and it's actually coming from a wound. It's actually coming from a trauma, and they have to get to a certain point when that's no longer, they don't feel fulfilled by it. It's not working for them. And then and it's really serving them to see that they're perfect and lovable and amazing just as they are. It's not about what they do, it's about who they are. So it can be disguised. It's such a great question to ask. It can be disguised in so many ways. And that's how it can also be so sneaky. So often people like that, they're so blocked and they say, look, I have everything. I met a man once years ago in Vancouver, in I can't think of the area, just past Kitsilano. You,
Mm.
you know where it is. Anywhere, and that was, you know, probably about 10 years ago. And the houses there were about the average, they kind of started at 25 million. So here he has this huge property and this big house, and he was in finance his whole life, and he was 83, and he decided he needed to downsize, and his health was starting to fail, and his wife was telling him, we've got to get out of this giant house, this is ridiculous. And he was having trouble with the stairs and all this sort of thing. And then he said they put the house on the market, and then he had this huge fear that he would end up homeless. His house,
Mm.
his huge fear, and he said it made no logical sense, but he couldn't get over it. He couldn't get over it, and he ended up taking the house off the market. And he said he had that fear since he was little, because he was born poor, and he was scared he would end up on the street. And I think his father used to, threaten him that if he didn't measure up or whatever, he'd end up on the street or that sort of thing. So he had this, that it actually became conscious, and it was running his life. And so he spent a great deal of his life avoiding living on the street. And so was in performance, had to do very, very well financially, but he was still stuck with this horrible fear that haunted him. And he didn't know what to do about it anymore.
Well, Miss Cheryl, what is the very first step someone should take to start a compassionate dialogue with their subconscious mind rather than fighting it?
Thank you for bringing that word compassionate, a compassionate dialogue. It's not what I say. I love that, Daniel. Thank you. So, to start a compassionate dialogue, you have to, number one, be willing. You can sit down, sit up nice and straight with a straight spine, and you close your eyes. And let's just try this right now. You can put your hand on your lower abdomen with your thumb at the level of your navel, And you want to inhale and let your belly expand to the count of 6 or 8 seconds. And then you exhale to 6 or 8 seconds. And that changes the brain function, changes your normal breathing to the frontal lobal brain and frees up the subconscious. And so you can think of anything in your life that's bothering you right now, anything at all. It might be a relationship, work, your health, anything. And you just think about that as you're breathing this way. And then you compassionately ask yourself, how do I feel about this? What is the emotion? And it might start with anger or sadness, disappointment, that sort of thing. And I'm just going to give you a quick and sort of quick and dirty here. And then you follow the emotions through. So we often hold certain emotions we don't express them. We repress them. And that's where they go into the subconscious. Eventually, we keep holding them in. So you follow what I call the emotional thread. And then when you get to the deepest emotion, then the next thing is you can ask yourself compassionately, and it might be a very deep emotion, a low vibration emotion like shame or guilt, despair. Confusion is a very common one in trauma with little toddlers. A lot of people, when they go back, they feel, because little ones can't understand their situations, so they just feel confused. So you can ask yourself, when did this emotion first begin? And you continue the breath. And I encourage you to follow the exhale, a long exhale, squeeze your belly, and you're telling your subconscious, let's go back to when this first began. And you don't need the memory. You might have a memory, you might have a scene, like you might see, I'm somewhere and there's people around me, and you'll kind of get a sense of it. And that's fine, but it's not important. It's how did you feel? Because remember, I said, science has proven trauma is stored in the subconscious through physical sensations and emotions. You want to make sure you feel all the emotions. And if you feel any physical sensations, let yourself feel them. So then you can imagine that you become your little self, your younger self, and you process your emotions. And then you can do some inner child work. You can reparent your little self. You always want to say you didn't deserve it. You didn't do anything wrong. It's not your fault. And you love that little self up. And then once you finish loving that little self up, then that little self is going to have a whole new set of emotions like joy and happiness and feeling loved. And then you can, find out, then you develop new truths. And that's the empowerment piece. So I call it the ACE method. It's A is for access, what's going on in there. C is for clear it, and that's through feeling it. And it's for empowerment. And so then you can, meditate or just close your eyes and breathe into it every day for about a week or so, and you'll turn around and you're different. And you'll see how it applies to your life situation. Well, no wonder I couldn't act, because I was believing this, because I was feeling this. I get, there was someone recently I just worked with, and they had this subconscious belief that they felt unwanted, and they believed they were unwanted, and they're in business and they weren't attracting their clients. Well, how can you attract clients if subconsciously you feel unwanted and you believe you're not wanted? So we cleared it, and we'll see what happens.
Yes, definitely clear the block, people, to be successful. Miss Cheryl, as a spiritual coach, master healer, and author, what are your short-term and long-term goals? Miss Cheryl?
I'm sorry, you said
Yes.
an author, and then I didn't catch what you said.
Yes, what will be your short-term and long-term goals?
What will be my
Short-term and long-term goals.
Short and long-term goals?
Yes, please.
Very, very good question. My short-term goals, something that I'm working on, is working with more business people. So I'm doing business chakra readings, and that's really been taking off beautifully. that's more of a short-term thing. And and so I'm looking at possibly focusing more on people in business, because I think the more I help people in business, especially spiritual people in business, the more it's going to help the world. And then a long-term goal is moving more into, I do a lot of healings, but I do a lot of readings. And it's really, I think, do, moving the readings to a new level, because I've done, a fair bit of mediumship, but I never say anything about it. And so it's kind of like I keep saying I'm going to come out of the closet on it, but that I still haven't come out of the closet. I keep saying it, so I must have a block around it. But it's because I think I'm so strong in the other areas, and the only way to get stronger at something is do more of it. It's practice, and I've done it when it's needed, and it always works. So I speak to spirits and my clients, deceased family members, and everything. So that's more of a long-term goal, that I can bring that to humanity, because it really has a lot of value when you have loved ones, or even just a loved one around you who's trying to help you in spirit, and you can't hear them, or you don't know they're there. And so to help build that connection, so that even if you don't have humans around you that are super supportive in the moment, you can always call these spirits in. And it's something I've practiced for years myself, and teach all my clients to do that. In my first book, it's, I have calling in spiritual support. But yeah, I think it's a really valuable tool that I'm uh, going to come out of the closet and develop more and more.
And good luck to your goals, Miss Cheryl, and looking forward for more success. And what would be your piece of advice for those people out there that they want to be like you?
The my greatest piece of advice is to, and I encourage you to even close your eyes right now as you're listening, and go inside your heart and really hear the truth of my words. You are powerful beyond what you can currently imagine.
Yes.
You came to this planet not just to do, but to be so much more than you can currently imagine.
To be something else and bring legacy to the world, like
Yes.
Miss Cheryl. Thank you for that advice, Miss Cheryl. And can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
Yes, I will. This is a very dear book of mine. I'm holding it up here. It is called Mastery Through Accomplishment. I don't know how well this book is read. It's by a great Sufi master, Hazrat Inayat Khan, and he this book really really changed me. And I was just telling you, Daniel, before we got on, how I was called to this book once again after I read it in 2012. And I'm like, so I had to find it in my house to begin with, and I found it. And then it's like I just knew I have to read this book again, because I'm going to get even more out of it. And then the next day, Daniel, you reached out to me to be on your podcast to talk about a book. I'm like, oh, I know what book it's going to be. So that was interesting. But I just pulled up, I just wrote on my screen, because I want to share with all of you the one sentence in this book, and it's somewhere in the middle. Uh, yeah, I'm just looking at this. But the one sentence that pulls me so much is, man, or men and women, think freedom is to do as he or she pleases, but true freedom is found when the self is given to God. In surrendering, one becomes free. And it's interesting, because I just had a client Monday this week, and she's very evolved. She's been meditating 55 years. I'm getting all these older people that have been spiritual. They've been on a spiritual journey, and they just need someone to help them get to that next level. We can't see ourselves. And so she was talking about freedom, and she said, I just want to feel free. And she was looking at freedom more of a, I don't have to, wouldn't have to answer to anybody. I could do as I please, but it was like a longing inside of her. And then through the session, she realized, I mean, this was so amazing. And I didn't say anything. I didn't say it's an inner state. I don't teach that way. I help her clear the block that was getting in the way of her finding that inner state of freedom. It was just magical. It was just magical, and how she felt. And she said, I don't have any worries. I don't have anything to worry about. I'm free. In her life, exactly as it was. Yes, she's still living here, but it was actually a higher state that she shifted into of true freedom.
Interesting, Miss Cheryl, and thank you for that recommended book. So tell us, for the person who thinks this is all woo woo, what is the most concrete evidence based argument or neurological explanation you have for why this process works?
Well, because, Curly photography years ago now has shown us, that we are made of light. We are energetic beings. We are light. And science has proven now we can move that energy around. Everything is malleable. I mean, I think even when I was a child, and I'm in my 60s, science proved that nothing is solid. Everything is made of atoms, and they're all moving. And so, and our brains, our brain capacity, when I was a child, I think it was like we're only using 5 or 10%, and we haven't grown that much. We're using a little bit more, but there's so much available to us. And I want to say, in my whole, spirit, what is spirituality? What is woo? I don't identify with woo. I don't go for anything flaky. I want the experience. To me, spirituality is healing and empowerment. It is about empowerment. And uh, it's not about wealth and manifesting. Your soul may have come here to manifest wealth, but not everybody's soul has. It's what the soul is here to accomplish and to learn and grow through. And that requires healing and empowerment, and to always be striving to become more of who you truly are, a better person. It's about the state of being. And we get so caught up in manifesting all these other things. And true freedom and true power is a state of being, and others feel your energy. There's so much science to back this up. For me, on my journey, you know, I've 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 joined, different spiritual schools. I've done all sorts of trainings, and I read just as much as I need to read to have an experience. And my experience is my proof. I'm like, whoa, that really works. Okay, now I'm going to read more about it and learn more. But if you're interested in this, and all you do is read about spirituality, but you don't have a practice, it's very thin, it's very superficial. Invite yourself to have an experience. Go meet with somebody, have an experience of energy, uh, and the proof will be there. I remember, I have a funny story. I was sitting with my brother once years ago when I was living on a float home in the inner harbor of Victoria, Canada. And we're talking about spirituality, and he was like, it's too woo for him. I don't even think the word woo was around yet. I said we can do anything. There's so much we can do if we just believe it, and we can. Things are malleable. It's everything is energy, and we had a candle burning on the table. And I said, just watch. I'm going to make that flame move, without blowing on it. And I was about 5 feet away from the flame. So even if I blew on it, and it was a big flame, the wick was kind of long. And he says, "There's no way." I said, "Well, let me just try." He said, "Have you done it before?" I said, "No, I've never done it, but I'm just going to try." And I did. So I just concentrated, and the flame went over on a 90-degree angle. And he said, "You're blowing on it." And I'm like, "Look at me," and he was just like, it blew him away. So he just needed an experience to open himself up to something else. If you want an experience, come and see me, or go somebody else. Go see someone else. Have an experience yourself. Feel. We all have the capacity to feel or see or experience energy. We're energetic beings. Do you ever get tingles? That tingling, it's all energy. So, just, you can open yourself up, and even some of the greatest scientists have turned spiritual, because science and spirituality go hand in hand. Science is just behind. It's just behind with all the explanations.
Well, interesting, Miss Cheryl. Interesting indeed. But before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my Abstract Essay is already in fifth season, Abstract Poetry in second season, my Book 101 review in fifth season too, Comedy 101 in second season, and my Food 101 in fifth season as well, Geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast, Low 101 and Mental Health 101, Love Letters from fourth season, and Movie 101 review and Music 101 is in fourth season as well, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Miss Cheryl, if someone listening or watching us right now feel stuck right now, and what is the one immediate and actionable step they can take today to begin their journey from black to powerful?
The one step is sit down, close your eyes, and go inward with the full breath and see what you find. That is the one step that can change your life.
Interesting, Miss Cheryl. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So can you please invite our listeners to support all your books? Miss Cheryl,
Yes.
can you please invite our listeners to support all your books or anything you want to promote on Book 101 review?
Promote anything of mine?
Yes, please invite
Oh,
them.
the number one thing that I think people get the most out of is a chakra reading from me. And that's where I can see your energy, and I can let you know where all your light is, where all your blocks are, and what your superpowers are. And that takes about 20 minutes. You can go on my website, starofdivinelight.com, and I can let you know how you can, what blocks are getting in your way, what you can do about them, and so that you can move forward. I have a number of programs. But if you go on there, there's also a pop-up link for some complimentary meditations. So I invite you to go and click on those. You can also find me on Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube.
Yes, people, let's support Miss Cheryl Stelte, because if you support her, for sure, more and more empowering books to come, more and more empowering advocacy to come. So, Miss Cheryl, thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you so much, Daniel. It's been such a pleasure to meet with you.
Yes, more to come, people. See you soon.